Hi, it's Lani Sass and I welcome you to my channel. In this video, we'll be exploring types of nutrient cycles. First, we'll review what nutrient cycles are and why they are important. And let's discuss why we need nutrient cycles and what are the types of nutrient cycles. So without further ado, let's get started. First, we're going to define what are nutrient cycles. Every living thing needs nutrients, right? They give our bodies energy and help our cells function. However, you might be surprised to learn that nutrients aren't just in living things. Nutrients move between living things into the earth and into the atmosphere. This process is called a nutrient cycle. Things we need to survive, like carbon-containing compounds such as sugar, micronutrients like nitrogen, phosphorus, and sulfur and water, move through living things and our environment. Why they are important? Nutrient cycles restore ecosystems to the equilibrium state and therefore play an important role in keeping the ecosystem functioning. All organisms, living and non-living, depend on one another. Nutrient cycles link living organisms with non-living organisms through the flow of nutrients.
Types of nutrient cycle: carbon cycle, nitrogen cycle, oxygen cycle, and water cycle. What is the carbon cycle? Carbon is the chemical backbone of all life on Earth. All of the carbon we currently have on Earth is the same amount we have always had. Marine organisms, from wash plants to fish, from seaweed to birds, also provide carbon through living and dying. Sometimes, dead organisms become fossil fuels that go through combustion, giving off carbon dioxide, and the cycle continues. What is the carbon cycle? Carbon is the chemical backbone of all life on Earth. All of the carbon we currently have on Earth is the same amount we have always had. When new life is formed, carbon forms key molecules like protein and DNA. It's also found in our atmosphere in the form of carbon dioxide. The carbon cycle is nature's way of reusing carbon atoms which travel from the atmosphere into organisms in the earth and then go back into the atmosphere over and over again. Most carbon is stored in rocks and sediments, while the rest is stored in the ocean, atmosphere, and living organisms. These are the reservoir or sinks through which carbon cycle. The ocean is a giant carbon sink that absorbs carbon. Marine organisms, from wash plants to fish, from seaweed to birds, also produce carbon through living and dying. Sometimes, dead organisms become fossil fuels that go through combustion. Nitrogen cycle. Nitrogen follows a cycle where it travels from the atmosphere to the soil, to the animals, and back. And in a cycle, nitrogen in the atmosphere falls to earth by precipitation, such as rain or snow. Once in the soil, it finds its way to bacteria on the roots of a plant. At the roots, the nitrogen is combined with hydrogen to make ammonia, in a process called nitrogen fixation. Lightning in the atmosphere can also do this. Now, ammonia is toxic, so additional bacteria combine this ammonia with oxygen in a process called nitrogen fixation. At this point, the nitrogen is in cianide form called nitrite. Additional nitrifying bacteria convert this nitrite to nitrate. At this point, plants can absorb this nitrogen in a process called assimilation. However, not all of the nitrate is absorbed, but some of it goes to the bacteria that release the nitrogen to the atmosphere in a process called denitrifying. The nitrogen returns to the atmosphere. Also, once in the animal after it eats the plants, the animal either dies or needs to get rid of waste. Another type of bacteria then takes this and along with the composers and breaks this nitrogen either in the waste or the dead animal, and by a process called ammonification, the nitrogen can enter the cycle once again, and nitrification, and the cycle continues. The oxygen cycle involves the movement of oxygen between biotic, which are living factors, and abiotic, which are non-living factors. The oxygen cycle maintains the levels of oxygen in our atmosphere. Processes within this cycle are considered either a source oxygen production or a sink, which involves oxygen consumption. But first, where do we find oxygen on Earth? The largest reservoir of the Earth, oxygen is found in the atmosphere. Silicate and oxide minerals of the crust and metal make up large proteins of the lithosphere and contain oxygen. The atmosphere is made up of roughly 21 oxygen. The hydrosphere, which is the water on Earth, is 33% oxygen by volume. The biosphere, which is the sum of all ecosystems, is 22% oxygen and is found mainly in organic molecules. Oxygen moves from the atmosphere to the lithosphere and the biosphere. Let's see how oxygen is cycled among these different regions on Earth. Plants, along with phytoplankton and other organisms that carry out photosynthesis, release oxygen into the atmosphere. In fact, marine produce most of the oxygen in our atmosphere. Animals, some bacteria and protists, and other organisms that carry out cellular respiration use oxygen in order to create ATP and de-release carbon dioxide.
The water we use today has been around for a long time. That is because water can recycle itself in the water cycle, which is also called the hydrologic cycle. Let's start the cycle with the evaporation of water from the surface of the ocean. As this moist air is lifted, it cools, and water vapor condenses. It may form clouds. In fact, clouds are made up of tiny water droplets and ice crystals are so small they can float in the air. This moisture in the atmosphere may be transported around the globe until it returns to the surface as precipitation. Precipitation may take the form of rain, snow, sleet, or hail. Now, once this water reaches the ground, one or two processes may occur. Some of the water may evaporate back into the atmosphere, or the water may penetrate the surface and become groundwater. The groundwater may take several different paths. The groundwater may seep in its way into the ocean's river or streams, or it may go into an aquifer, which is a body of saturated rock through which water can easily move, or it may be released back into the atmosphere through transpiration. Transpiration occurs when leaves from trees and other Vegetation give off water vapor through pores in their leaves. Some water on the earth's surface is not absorbed by plants or become groundwater, and it becomes surface runoff. This runoff may empty into lake, rivers, and streams, and then is carried back to the ocean where the cycle may begin.